Okay, so for my research project, I chose to look at the benefits of play-based learning, and my major focus was how we can easily incorporate more opportunities to integrate play-based learning into what we're already doing. Rather than reinventing the whole wheel, let's just see what we can add to what we're already doing that's working so well. So first I have just a quote. I'm going to step out. It says, "Children need the freedom and time to play. Play is not a luxury. Play is a necessity." And Kay Redfield Jamison said this. She is an American psychologist and writer, and she's looked a lot at play related to children. And I think this just reminds us that it's not something that we should be looking at as you earned this chance to play. You earned the right to recess. You earned the right to socialize with your friends. Kids should already be doing that. That's not something that we should feel like we can easily take away. That's something that we should give them as much opportunity as possible to do. So the 4 pillars of learning and the science behind play involve active role. So the person should have an active role in their learning. They should be engaged, the information should be meaningful, and then social interaction should be present. And when you look at each 4 of these things, you can relate all 4 of those back to play. The kids are actively participating. So a lot of times kids will role play and they'll ask their friends, "You be this person and I'll be this person." They're engaged because it's something that they enjoy doing. It's meaningful information, even if they are simply just playing house or playing library or policeman, because they are learning how to socialize with other children their own age. And then neuroscientists have found that play activates the brain in meaningful ways that memorization, testing, worksheets, our direct instructions do not. And that's something that a lot of research has been done on to show that while there is a place, as a teacher, I believe you have to believe that there is a place for memorization practice or testing. We have to assess students. We can't not assess. At times there are places for worksheets. But we must remember that kids learn best through play, and if we're not also incorporating play, are they really going to retain that information? Are they really personalizing that and internalizing it? So just background of play-based research. A lot of, I guess the biggest argument about that is play versus academics. When honestly, we can incorporate play into academics. It doesn't have to be a battle, so to speak. It can be something that we can easily integrate. So we can still keep standardized testing. We can still keep our schedules. We can still have assessments and rigorous planning, but we can also, there's also a place for play and imagination and discovery led by the students. We don't have to pick and choose. If we work hard, we can naturally create environments where all of that's possible. So I sent out a survey, and I asked these 3 just overall questions just to kind of get people's opinions, because everybody has different opinions of play-based learning and where discovery plays a part in education. So I asked, what comes to mind when you hear the term play-based learning? I asked about apprehensions, because anytime you try to incorporate something that you're not used to, you're a little apprehensive about it. You're not sure how it's going to work. And I did point out that I do believe teacher monitoring should be present, but we need to give up some of that control. And I speak to myself when I say that also. You have to give up some of that control and just allow them to guide their learning. And then I also asked about extended recess time, and I asked if you feel that it's beneficial to add to that 20 minutes that were allotted. And through my research, I realized that we're honestly really, really blessed in the state of Kentucky to have 20 minutes of recess. A lot of states do not require that they have a scheduled block of recess. And in a lot of states, teachers right now are actually fighting to get that 20 minutes added, which is something we already have. So I feel like we're already on the positive side of things, because our kids already do have that time set aside where legally we have to let them play. So I think that is one benefit that we do have. And then here are responses in no particular order. These are the things that showed up a lot in responses. So teacher control, and a lot of you all really agreed that we need to give up that control. We have to step back and be okay with our kids making mistakes, or being okay with a lesson going in a direction that we didn't intend for it to go in, because sometimes that's when your best lessons happen. Planning and preparation was a concern. Like, what am I going to need? Am I going to have to change the way I lesson plan in order to incorporate play-based learning? And as you'll see in a few minutes, you don't have to really add a lot of materials or funding or additional resources. It's just all in the way that you set it up. Responses included, they think of social development, interaction, exploration. Everyone pretty much agreed that it was beneficial and that it could positively affect student achievement, especially with extended recess. We already have those behavior issues. We can think of those kids automatically that can't sit still for longer than 5 minutes at the carpet, or don't do their best in a center if an adult isn't present. And so those kids already need something different to challenge them. But when you focus on those 4 pillars that I talked about earlier, and you look at, are they being engaged? Do they like what they're learning? Is it presented to them in a way where this applies to me? Because so many times we're just, this is what you need to know, instead of this is what's important to you. And giving them the control where they feel like, oh, I can look at it this way, or I can play with it this way, and no one's going to tell me that I'm doing it wrong because I'm not doing it like the other person. So it doesn't have to be either or. You don't have to pick academics or play-based learning. You truly can do both. And so that's what I'm going to show you in the next few slides. So here we have, I'm going to step back just a little bit, Forest Kindergarten, which is becoming a big thing. This is from a school in Tennessee, in Wauhatchie, Tennessee. And then we have a school in Lafayette, Georgia, where they both participate in Forest Kindergarten. Forest Kindergarten actually it pioneered in Scandinavia. And although it was discovered around the 1950s, it hasn't really traveled much elsewhere until recently. But students' discoveries are used by educators as teachable moments. So the teacher doesn't necessarily have an idea of, okay, today when we go outside, we're going to learn about insects. They just let the kids find what they find, and they talk about it and use those opportunities so that it's already something the kid's interested in. And if you teach a kid, if you answer their questions about things they're coming to you with, they're going to internalize that and they're going to remember it more, rather than facts that you're spitting off to them. So Forest Kindergarten for this school, every weekday, they set aside 3 hours to be outside. And they have the benefit of, their school is located, it's surrounded by 50 acres of property that a couple next to the school, they really support the school well, so they give them full permission to roam their acreage. And rain or shine, as you can see, they go outside for 3 hours. And they explore. And the article that I looked at, that I'll share in my references, really talked about how the teacher just stands back and lets the kids discover. So they talk about, one student, for example, noticed a balloon in a tree that had been busted and brought up the fact that the balloon wasn't a part of nature. And so then the teacher had the opportunity, to have that real-world conversation of litter. And so all the kids sat around and they talked about litter and why it's important to keep garbage out of nature and so forth. And then this is a picture, I think it's cute, of a little girl after her 3 hours of Forest Kindergarten that day. So parents expect their kids to come home like this. With this school, it's Gilbert Elementary, and they won the Green Ribbon Award in 2017 for innovative environmental, nutritional, and sustainability teaching. And then some research to kind of back all this, the State Education Environmental Roundtable Group in 2005, they did a 5-year study, not specific to kindergarten, because they wanted to look at, we know it's beneficial for early ages because they have questions and they're not as experienced and they don't have as much prior knowledge to relate what they're learning to. So they looked at grades 2 through 5, the bigger, where you start becoming tested and that sort of thing, those ages. And they did a 5-year study on almost 13,000 kids, and they found that 96% of those kids that they studied scored as well or better than those without any environmental education. And so they're really big on getting kids out. They're really big on STEM. That's a big thing that they focus on, and you're seeing it a lot more in, I guess, surrounding schools near Kentucky. And then I wanted to focus on play and standards-based learning environments because a lot of people do talk about, okay, we have those standards that we have to teach. We're responsible for those. So how can we see that our kids are having the opportunity to discover and to play, but we're still meeting the standards? It's not a, let's throw the standards out and let the kids play. It's how can we incorporate both to where the kids are getting what they need, we're getting what we need, and everything is working for the better. And I just really wanted to point out, I took these pictures from the TCT Science that I did last year. In many ways, we're already doing it. There's a lot of times where we're letting the kids go out and explore. On this day, I didn't tell the kids that they were searching for necessarily seeds. I said, hey, let's go outside and put our socks over our shoes and let's see what we find. And they went out and they explored and they brought things in, and they brought things in that weren't seeds. And we talked about those things. But just giving up that control, not saying, hey kids, we're going to go outside and I want you to pick up this many seeds, and I want you to notice which seeds you find and which seeds you can't find, and I want you, and telling them everything that they need to do. Let them go outside, because then a lot of times you can get those teachable moments that they would have been more apprehensive to share had you not given them that freedom. They're not going to ask those questions and try to get a deeper understanding, I don't feel like, just personally with my students and my personal kids, if they don't feel like they play a major role in their education. And ultimately, they play the biggest role. They make or break it. Their motivation, their determination, that determines whether or not they're learning. So let's let them be more of a guide to that. And then extended time for discovery and socialization. Obviously, if you're a primary teacher, you're a huge advocate for extra recess. But not only because it gives everybody a break to just kind of chill and just reflect on what you're doing, but also it provides those real-world problem-solving opportunities that you can't make up. I can't have my kids come in here in a few minutes when they come back from specials and say, okay, let's say you two are in an argument over a toy. What are you going to do? They're going to say, share. But if you see them in that real situation, if they both really want that toy, they're not going to share. That might not be the first thing that comes to their mind. So when you provide them with that opportunity where you're present and you're observing their behavior and you're there for them, but they have the opportunity to decide, what am I going to do? Because next year, you're not going to be their teacher. And in a few years, you're not going to be there with them in the real world. But if you give them the opportunity to solve now, they're going to feel more confident in their own abilities. And I see this at our school. I see kids come up off the playground and tell their teacher, so-and-so said this to me, or they're not listening to me. And the teacher says, y'all need to figure it out. And they'll go back and they'll do it. But they're so used to someone else solving their problems for them that we're really not creating good problem solvers. We're constantly providing them the answer. We wait for a response, and if we don't get the one that we want, we give them the answer. That's not teaching them anything. And then students get to take an active role in their learning environment. So they get to figure out more of who they are and what things they're interested in, which is going to guide them in making those future choices, like what job do I want? What school do I want to attend? Rather than trying to steer everyone in the same direction, so to speak. And then what can a Darable do? We already do a really good job of getting our kids involved in the community. I'm very pleased to say that that's something that we already do. So kindergarten, for example, does their community helpers walks. They go out, they get to know the people in the community. We have students come in and we have the fire department come to visit. and we have science lessons that we're responsible for. So we work with science and technology. We have our Lego group, our robotic group. We have those things in place. So I feel like we're at that advantage and we have that benefit. Our kids have that benefit. But I still feel like there are more opportunities where we could step back and let the kids ask the questions. And it's intimidating because we don't always know the answer. But when we let them explore, then we all find out something new. And then the kids feel more confident in, okay, Miss Cox doesn't know the answer to that, but she knows how to find it. So if I have another question like that, I can teach Miss Cox, and we can all learn this together. So giving them more opportunity. I did put 2 texts up here regarding play. So there's purposeful play and the power of play. And this text in particular just kind of goes back and lets you look at how learning, what part of learning comes naturally. What part do you already do? And let's not try to break it down and force kids to play or force kids to learn in certain ways. But let's take what we already know, the facts we already know, and use it to our advantage. Because if we know that kids learn best through play, and we don't give them that opportunity, then we're really not accomplishing anything. We're not using our knowledge to better support our future steps. And then I have my references, which I know everybody wants to look at. And then a quote from Piaget. Our real problem is, what is the goal of education? Are we forming children that are only capable of learning what is already known, or should we try developing creative and innovative minds capable of discovery from the preschool age on throughout life? So are we really just asking questions and wanting specific answers, or are we teaching them to be problem solvers and teaching them to be creative minds and encouraging them to explore? So, anybody want to learn anything else or have questions or comments or?